Hello, my name is Peter Raymer, and today I want to talk about how to use D365 skip data methods. So in the past few articles, I've written about how to use the insert record set, the update record set, and the delete from record set, which are set-based operations to update data much more quickly than, say, just using a while select loop. But there's a few catches to that. You need to make sure that that set-based operation is remaining a set-based operation and not reverting into a record by record update. And the way we do that is we use the method SkipDataMethods, as well as there's a couple others now, SkipDatabaseLog and SkipEvents, that you'll want to use as well. So let's jump into it, and this will make more sense in just a second. So let's start with an example scenario. Let's pretend you have a runnable job or some kind of process that is updating, deleting, or inserting data. And in this case, I've got this example where I am updating the customer record. Let's just pretend I've got a runnable job and I need to fix some data. I can use this runnable job, and I'm declaring a variable of type cusTable, and then I've got this code commented out. I'll uncomment it just to show you a second, but in this case we're looping through every record in the cusTable where the invent site ID is set to a hard-coded value. Normally we don't want a hard code, but this hard-coded value is East, and so we're going to loop through all the customers that are East, and then we're going to change that invent site ID to West. Perhaps we just need to make a bulk data change during implementation or later on in a way that would take a lot longer if we were to do by hand. So this is our example. In this case, we then call cusTable.update, and then this will update the record. This will loop through every single customer that has this site East. So potentially this could be hundreds of thousands of customers and take quite a while. So first off, how would we do this more quickly? And the quick answer is we would use a set-based operation. Instead of using this while select loop, we would instead use an update record set. We can rewrite this statement right here with this one right here. Update record set cusTable, setting invent site ID equals West, where cusTable invent site ID equals East. And so that's great. You'll notice one difference. Instead of me having the info statement inside of the while select, I was no longer able to do that. I had to put it outside and just say these records were updated. So it's something to consider when you're rewriting code, is to look at the logic inside your while select and see if you could rewrite it this way. It's not always possible, but when you can, this is going to send a single select statement or update statement to the SQL database, have it update as fast as that SQL database can do it, and then come back. So this is great. This is kind of a review of the update record set. However, there's an issue, and so if you were to actually run this without this code, we can comment this out, what would happen is the system would actually revert to a record by record update. We wouldn't get the benefits of this update record set. And why is that? The reason is if there is code in the update method, in the override of the update method on this table that we're updating, then the system's going to say, hey, we can't skip that code. We're instructed to run it, so we need to run it. And so then it moves it to record by record. Same thing if there's code in the delete method for a delete record set, and same thing if there's code in the insert method of the insert record set. So we need to be really careful when we use these to see if they truly will run as a set-based operation. So one thing we can do is we can check that, right? We can go over to the Application Explorer, we can find the cusTable, right-click and say View Code, and open it up. We can then browse to this update method, in our case, to see is there code in here. And sure enough, there is. Microsoft has overridden and put code inside this update. There might also be chain of command code that third party or var has put into this update method that's going to cause it to run on every single record. So that's a problem. It kind of gets rid of our performance improvement. And sometimes that just is what it is. There's no way around it. However, sometimes you as the developer can consider, is it safe for us to skip this logic? And you have to be very, very careful when doing this. But sometimes this is okay. So in my case, I'm doing maybe a single runnable job. I'm not going to have this run often, and I'm only updating the event site ID. Maybe there's other code that you will run frequently in production, but it's still a field that you think safe. The way we evaluate this is we're going to look inside the update method and see, is there any business logic that deals with this invent site ID? If there is, such as if the site's changed, we need to go on a related record and update somewhere else, some value there, then it wouldn't be appropriate for us to skip this logic. But we can look through this and say, do I see anything inside of this where updating the invent site ID might cause a problem? And at first glance, it doesn't look like that's the case. However, I would want to drill in further into some of these methods, see if it truly makes sense for me, for it to be safe. But just for the sake of this lesson, let's pretend that we deem it is safe to skip the logic in here. The way we do that, if we go back to our runnable job, is we actually add this method right here. We before we call our update record set, we say custtable.skipDataMethods. And what this is going to do when we pass in true is it's going to skip the update method, the insert method, or the delete method. In this case, it'd be the update method. And so then we get our set-based operation functionality back. We can run this much, much faster. And so that's really valuable, especially when we need that performance. However, I want to make one more kind of call out. For a long time, I should say, it felt like all we needed was the skip data methods. However, there is further functionality where you can do database logs as well as events. And so you may need also to add these two calls. And sometimes it's a good idea to add these even if you've debugged and you're not seeing an issue. If someone turns on the events or database logs, you may want these in place as well. Again, I really caution you to be careful with this because perhaps that database log is really valuable and you want to be able to see that. But in some situations, the performance gains are worth it, so you can turn these two on. So how do we tell that a second? So let's go kind of before I show you that, I did write an article on insert record set, right? It shows you how to turn a while select into an insert record set. Here's another one on update record set. So a similar example where we're having a while select on update, and then you can turn it into an update record set. And then similarly, there's another article on delete from. So here we have a while select and we're calling delete on each one. You can change that into a delete from set-based operation. But back to kind of what I was explaining earlier with the SkipDatabaseLog and SkipEvents. This Microsoft article is really helpful. Maintain fast SQL operations. It gives you a bit of a chart. I've also included this chart in my article where it explains when you might need these certain operations. So in our case, we're performing an update record set. I can just go down this list and say, okay, do I need a skip delete actions. In this case, no, it doesn't apply. We're not deleting records, so we don't need to skip the delete actions. If we were doing a delete from, I would need to consider doing a delete actions to maintain that set operation. Then I can see here, yes, updates do affect SkipDatabaseLog, so to deletes and inserts, so I do need to call that method to be fully safe. And then SkipDataMethods, we already talked about, yes. SkipEvents, also yes. Lastly, there is this valid time state field. If you're using a valid time, from date to date value and that valid date time functionality, you would also need to set this to none. In this case, we're not. That doesn't apply to this particular table, so we're okay with just leaving or calling these 3 skip methods. So the benefit here is now when I run this, it shouldn't call our update method or any other update functionality, and then it can make this run as a single select statement, a single update statement to the database that can churn as fast as possible. It's a single trip to the database and back. And so again, this is really helpful when you're tuning your code, when you've got batch jobs that are potentially taking too long. You look for while select statements that you can turn to set-based operations, but then you also need to consider using these methods and looking if there is code on the update, insert, or delete on each table to ensure that you can update data as fast as possible. So hopefully you learned something new today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching. If you liked the video, click the like button. I also invite you to push the subscribe button as well. If there's other topics you would like to see a video on, please post in the comments and I'll see what I can do. I hope you learned something new today. Thank you.